You are very well known in the field of project program, portfolio management, and you have been contributing to various people via your mentoring service and via talking, keynote speaker in conferences and events. And you have been doing a great job by assisting me to build my knowledge pool. So far, we have built so many videos and so much knowledge we have collected. And I'm sure people are watching these and learning from them. And we're excited to bring more topic.
I appreciate you, Dharam, being able to be so stable and loyal and, to build this kind of knowledge base. Because as I did my first project in 1974, most of our people listening to us will not be at this age. And I'm now retired from IBM, where I served a lot of IBM clients over my active life, and I'm still volunteering for PMI. And I'm also doing a doctoral thesis on the difference between projects and programs, because I think that I want to give back. Really, I have an obsession to make people understand what the difference is, and that projects, big projects, should not be run as projects maybe, but as programs to be more able to deliver the benefits that are
Yeah,
possible.
definitely. And because program need different level of rigors and management, governance, engagement
Yeah.
level. So Thomas, today we are talking about very important topic and it's impacting lots of project managers, program managers, or anybody doing working professional life. And it's all about how can we get done more with less stress.
Yeah.
Life is full of stress, that and more pressure, more in demand, this requirement, deadline, and then suddenly you find that you're trying to do something, but it's not moving anywhere, and as
Yeah.
productive it should be.
Yeah. So let me say what I have talked to people about that when I was an IBM project and program manager for IBM clients. We, all of us in this role, were very busy, and demands from the customers, demands from our organization. And then, you know what I did? I took on the volunteer role in PMI, and people were saying, "Are you crazy? You're adding to your stress level." Yes, I did. But what it also helped me is to understand, to probe myself, can I afford having so many tasks and a long list of tasks for every day? And you just have to say, okay, you cannot do everything, but you have to prioritize and you have to balance. And the most important thing I found in people and in myself at this time is you have to control your emotions about that. Stress is a bodily reaction, your increased heartbeat, and you cannot think directly, you don't know what to do. And emotional balance is the key to handle stress, that you understand first, you are the master of your own life, and you are the master of what you commit to and what you want to do. And you also cannot possibly at any stage do everything you could do. Even today, when I'm retired, I have a full list of to-dos, but I'm able to pick the one which is important today. And it might change because events arise, you get a call or you get an additional task, and you have to include it in your to-do list. And you just do that. And you don't waste any emotions on being disturbed. So give an example. Many people today use the term VUCA. We have increased uncertainty and we have complexity and ambiguity, and they are afraid of it. VUCA is also sometimes used as a threatening term. I say VUCA is life because let's take the last term, ambiguity. If you don't have ambiguity in you have no choice. You are forced to do something. You have no freedom. So freedom is really depending on ambiguity. If everything is fixed in the future, no, you don't want this. So VUCA is not something negative for me. It's something very positive because
Yeah,
it gives me the opportunity to live and to have choices and even complexity. Complexity is also a perception of many people. So if she would be alive, my grandmother, when I gave her a iPhone, she would say, I cannot. That is very too complex for me. And is it complex for you? No. You love it because it helps you run through life and make decisions and have information at hand and call people and have this kind of chats between US and Europe where I am. And this is helping us really to enrich life and to make new things. The main lack, if you feel stress, you have to understand it's a bodily function out of the confusion in your head. Some call it mental space. Do I have enough mental space to grasp the situation and to be able to switch tasks and to set priorities without being emotionally caught in a situation? Other things, how can you influence your bodily reaction, which is called stress? There are other things which I tried out. It's about, let's say, stress relief exercises by yoga, by meditation, by Tai Chi, or there is something more for Westerners, the stress relief technique by Jacobson, when you pull out your strengths and your muscles and you relieve them again. How do you eat? If you drink a lot, you eat a lot at the wrong time, this also affects your bodily reaction on stress levels. And when you experience a particular situation where you say, okay, this is now stressing me, just stop and take deep breaths. And yeah, you have that. You are practicing yoga for your lifetime. And it certainly helps you overcome
Yeah.
these kind of situations. And it has the stress relief and coping with the VUCA has less to do with the efficiency of processes, but you can use some kind of tools like routines. If you have habits like really doing meditation every morning, half an hour of some bodily exercises, or you have you can also build some automation in your thinking. It's called heuristics. So the best leaders, which are really able to cope with stress, they have a lot of heuristics. Heuristic is there is a trigger in life and you have an automatic reaction to that. And so the best people, and there are some papers of CEOs, what are your heuristics? And then they can list 10 or 15 automatic reactions to triggers, which also helps not to think, oh, I'm overwhelmed with something, but there is this kind of trigger and you just do it. Another example is firefighters. You don't want firefighters to be in a stressful situation, but they certainly cope with life-threatening situations. They are preparing for crisis scenarios. They have a clear prioritization. First, save lives, then look for others, and put the fire out, and all the stuff comes on a third level, fourth level. And they exercise, having this kind of habits, having this routines, and this helps them to cope with the situations. First responders, same thing. What I want to say is to your question, all these guys who are at upper levels in responsibility, they are able to cope with stress and they use all these tools. And it first starts with your mental preparedness, to have a mental space to think and not to be overwhelmed by your emotions and hormones.
Exactly. Look, I mean, you correctly mentioned there are various situations. VUCA is one of them because of volatility in environment or the situation you are in, ambiguity, and all those things create unnecessary anxiety and pressure and stress.
Yeah.
And more you think, more you get into that, they are going to give you more and more stress. That's why
Yeah.
people start getting headaches and they lose the rational thinking and make some unexpected or unwanted decisions or take action or do something which can harm them for later. There are many things we can do, and we'll talk a little more how we can do some yoga and cycling and
Yeah.
gym or whatever can help you to take yourself away from the situation and think outside of box. That helps you to think out of the box.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know that I'm teaching PGMP, PFMP, and many other certificate. Some of these are very complex exams and very involving. And if you are going through the exam with a lot of stress, anxiety, pressure, chances are that you're not going to make the exam because you already given your mind so much pressure that you cannot think rationally. That's one advice I give to my student before 24 hours of your exam. Don't touch the books. Very
Yeah.
but as much as you can keep your books away from you, or you may look at things as some formula or something, but don't, okay, I have to study. Because the problem is we keep studying until the last minute. When, Everybody has to excel. And we study up to the last minute. And that's okay because you know what kind of question they could ask. But in this scenario based question, if you put too much pressure on yourself, you cannot think through and find the right answer very easily. You take more time, and that impacts you. You may not be able to complete the exam, and you may not be able to pass the exam. So, best thing is take the day before, relax, night, sleep properly, do exercise, have healthy
Yep.
food, and then you go to the exam. Then situation is different. Anyway, so this is exams. Let's come back to the work we are doing. So let me ask you my first question. So Thomas, you have coached several global leaders and for many decades. So from your experience, what is the main reason people feel overwhelmed even when they have right tools and processes?
I think we covered this point in the introduction already. The main lack I have identified is the lack of self-control, which is a part of emotional intelligence. And you
Yeah.
can strengthen your self-control, which means the control of your emotions. I was very lucky that I attended a course around 1995. And it was really giving me the ability not to fear anything, because the habit that was taught in this course was identify the trigger that is giving you stress. If this trigger comes, and this trigger would normally attack your amygdala to enter this vicious cycle of emotions and of putting out hormones in your blood sugar. And if you identify the trigger, like I see a spider on the wall, then ask yourself the question, do I want to be stressed now? Do I want to be afraid now? And if you ask yourself a question, it automatically involves your thinking level in the brain, the prefrontal cortex. And then you are safe, because the answer to this question should be no. But this gave me a lot. And from that time on, I identified my triggers and I asked these questions. And today I fear nothing. I do that for 20 or 25 years. And I think this also helps me a lot to do this, to test me out. As I said in the beginning, I was working for IBM clients, which is not only a full-time job, but maybe 150% job. And then on top of that, I put on the presidency of a PMI chapter, which cost me about 30 days a year on volunteer time. People said, you are crazy. What are you doing? And people said, how are you doing that? And I said, it's exactly that, because I'm not emotionally stressed by this kind of work, or that I have a lot of things to do. For me, it was a kind of experiment. Overwhelm yourself on purpose, but stay on control and develop your habits and automatisms that you can cope with the situation. If you can do that in your normal life, you will be very happy if you can extend it to other areas. And really, in the end, you can do more. As you asked in the beginning, you can do more without stress. When you often have a lot of tasks and you are impatient, you switch too much. You switch from one task to the others, and there's always a waste of energy you use by switching tasks.
Yep.
So one thing what helps is stay patient. And as you were talking about yesterday, I was at the hotel bar and there was a guy and he was ordering his check to pay. And while doing, he was waiting and he was impatient. He would give me the check, I want to pay. And so he stood, I thought, I saw him so many times before, and put his knocked on the table for maybe 10 seconds or so. But it was a kind of reaction that he was not patient enough for 10 seconds to wait for the charge. And if you are impatient, it's again a negative emotions, which doesn't help your stress levels. Serenity, patience, humility, these are all traits you should develop and should strengthen in yourself to make you capable to cope with everything which comes up to you.
Exactly. Look, many times the stress happen because we have a fear of failure. Fear of if we don't do this on time, something else happen. And like you talked about cockroach or spider, why they get stressed? Because they think that it's going to bite and they're going to have a consequence, negative consequence. And that's where we feel stressed. Going to the exam, what if I fail? You already failed because you're telling yourself, what if I fail? So you bringing that negativity in you, and that is creating more pressure on yourself. And like everybody like me also go through some stress. I'm rushing for my airport for catching the flight and or miss the flight, for example. So I'd say, tell myself, okay, there are two things happen. Why? Is there a reason for me to stress? Can I do anything with this situation? If I can do something, let me do it. Okay. If I can't do anything, then relax. Okay. And suddenly that stress goes away
Exactly.
because I can't do much about it. Then just wait for the time to happen. And yes, yeah, I'm not saying don't do whatever you can do, whatever you have to do it. But if you cannot do, okay, you cannot change the direction at all, then just sit down, relax, just think about it. Why it's happening to you? Maybe it's a test, maybe a situation is testing you. And this will make you a better person. Or you are not in the right direction. That's why situation try to bring you back to the right direction. It will help
Yep.
you, becoming better person in your life.
I think the key thing is when we talk about stress and want to do more and we have too many things, it's not a matter of how to work, what kind of process and tools you have. It's really a matter how you set up your own brain to control your emotions. And give you another example I'm using. Sometimes in Germany, we try to be on time. And sometimes you also have traffic jams. So
Yeah.
we drive from one location to the other. And let's say I have a meeting at 10 and I drive there and I see, okay, I will be maybe 10 minutes late. The first thing I do is to inform the host that I will be late. And I will also in my brain say, okay, I will be 10 minutes late, but let's assume you give me some more buffer and let's assume I'm 15 minutes late. The fact that I'm 15 minutes late
Yeah.
and the stress goes away. Because once I accept this delay and I inform the host that it will be late, I even can come just in time or 5 minutes early. And this will be a different emotional situation for me and also for the host. The host is informed, it might happen. It was not a good planning on my part, okay, but it doesn't really give a big deal to yeah to drive through it and speed and whatever and then get something else
Yeah.
or even have an accident.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get to the question. How do you personally decide what to focus on and what to let go?
Oh, yeah. I'm still procrastinating sometimes. So decision making is a human thing. That's why I sometimes challenge people telling me, oh, we have to have AI decision making, data driven decision making. No, decision making is a very human thing. And as a board member, there are special ways how we try to, or how the laws for board members are trying to channel it and to make it more successful. Because as a board member, you are representing the shareholders, or in the case of PMI, the members who are not holding any shares, but who are electing the board, and the board is acting on behalf of the members. So the responsibility is very high. Give you an example. PMI has 500 million in reserves. And people are saying, rightly, this is members' money and it should be invested in members' purposes and services and whatever. But now, if you're on the board and one of the directors and even the full board, and you decide to spend 300 million on something, this is a high responsibility because you are spending half of the reserves and you are making this call. And if it fails, you made the wrong call. That's why one of the reasons I think that the boards sometimes shy away from this kind of decisions because it's these board members of PMI are volunteers, and despite that there is a insurance for some actions, if you don't really make these decisions that are defendable and that are founded and all the emotional bearable for you, then you have a problem doing just making these decisions. And although formally and legally each board director of the 12 we have now is an independent human on that board, makes independent decisions. Nevertheless, you get this discussion about decisions. And so the independence is formally there, but in fact, you're looking at opinions of others and you have some in groups, and that shouldn't be the case, but it is. And also on the PMI board, what I think is very good. So we have a very large diversity, not only male, female, but also from different areas. The current chair is from Africa, which I find very encouraging. We should have more people from Asia, actually, but the majority is from North America. Then are Europeans. Then there are some Latin Americans. Always, also. And this gives different cultural discussions and views and perspectives. And this is very enriching, being on the board and making these decisions, taking in account all these different perspectives, because that's the point. What should a good board director bring with him? It's a kind of cognitive diversity, so that you have different views. And this can be also dangerous, because I have seen people from which has a very special cultural view. Let's say they came from academia or they came from Latin America, not really able to communicate too well in English language, then
Yeah.
it's more difficult for them to be heard. So board decision making is a very special thing. It's not a singular thing. So some people, sometimes the board chair or the CEO wants to influence others, and that's appropriate to a certain level. But yeah, strategy is also something what I found on the board. If you make a decision and it is then implemented by a task force or whatever, the CEO, the decisions you make as a board member only take effect maybe after 3, 4, 5 years. And that's also something, it's not like in a project, you make a decision and next week something done. Strategy is something you decide for the long term. And you will also only find out after years, and you are no longer on the board, what your decisions made, what kind of impact, you know?
So this is all about what to focus on based on the priority. Highest priority, of course, we pay attention. And you have to have a list of all the items you have to do or think about, talk about, and then focus on highest priority and think about what is the impact of this or impact of not doing it, negative policy side. So that can be a tool we can use for helping us making decisions.
Yeah, so the roles in the board are very clear on that. The board chair is in charge of setting the agenda, putting the priorities, but the priorities and the criteria which are to apply to that list of potential tasks is also very clear and formalized. And you have to distinguish, and normally the board should not be involved in critical situations, but sometimes it has to be. So if there is, let's say, unethical behavior of a board member which surfaces and you have to deal with that, let's say a big leader, CEO, leaves the organization for some reason, you have to look for a new CEO. So sometimes there are urgent matters. These are normally taken care of not by the full board. In the end, final end, yes, the full board has to decide, but by a small group who can deal better with such kind of critical situations.
So my next question is, what is the difference between being busy and being productive? And why do many professionals confuse these two terms?
Yeah. So busy is that you feel you have a lot of things at your hand and you have to decide or whatever to do. Being productive is what comes out at the end.
Yep.
And in productive, the word product is important, and the project management is coming from the product management area. First, so we are creating in the former definition of the project is we are creating a unique product. What is it? A piece of software or a bridge or whatever. And this has now a little bit morphed into value. And maybe that's the next thing. Beyond productive, it's we are progressing. We are making progress.
Yeah.
And making progress, we are building a potential. We are building value. So this is somehow reflected in the new definition of a project. So I think busy is the emotional state, productive is the rational state, and progressing is a VUCA state, because you are living and you are making some progress here and there in a project. In 2 weeks, you have to do this and that. Maybe it's not worthwhile looking in the 2 weeks at this product, because you can do with your energy something much better that prepares you for after that time. And the product will come out better in another timing. So, give an example. You have to build a road and it rains like hell. So you shouldn't go out and build the road now. But so you miss the target in 2 weeks. But maybe with the energy, with the efforts, with the money you have, you do something else. You can maybe prepare the road partly and be more quick once the rain stops and you go out. Don't try to force things to a deadline or to a product, but always consider the context and the environment. Do what it really makes progress and not just try to force a product because there's a schedule for it.
Yeah. Actually, this is reminding me one of the animation I've seen in maybe on LinkedIn or somewhere, where the guy putting the load on the head or whatever they're doing, that they are carrying the load, and this guy, one guy, putting the hand here, there, and he seems like the most busy person, but he's not the productive person. Productive is you're going to produce something. The outcome is there. Busy, as it's a mental state. You're trying to do this, you're trying to do this, and many things you're trying to do, and you
Yeah.
cannot do anything because you're busy, so much busy, you cannot focus, and you're not productive enough.
Yeah. And the other thing is, if you really, let's say, reject requests by saying, okay, I'm too busy, this really gives the impression that you are not the master of your time and you don't know how to prioritize. So never say that. Never say, I'm too busy to do that. And always say, okay, I hear you and I can respond to you maybe tomorrow, whatever. Yeah. You can delay, but being busy is a negative term, I think.
Yeah, it's right to say, I'm too busy, or I'm busy, or I'm very busy. If they don't manage the time properly, they're in a chaotic environment all the time, they feel they're busy. We are busy when, like we're talking like this, we are busy, but we are producing something, we are being productive.
Exactly. And busy is all often related to impatience again.
Yeah.
So that you feel you should do something productive in this time while you're waiting for a bill. It doesn't come faster if you are impatient and building up a stress level in yourself.
And it can also happen with the change of task, like in office environment. We're doing something, boss comes, hey, can you do this? Yes, I will do this. And suddenly this work which is half done is left alone. And that's
Yeah.
how you want to do something else. So you're not able to produce something. At the end of the day, you have done nothing.
Yeah. And sometimes we want to really be friendly to people by responding and taking the task again. You can learn how to say no
Exactly.
without offending people. But you really get a request and you have to deal with that request, but you say, okay, if I do that, maybe something else has to suffer from that. It's your call to set the priorities if it's your boss or your customer. There are some tools and techniques, and I'm giving a leadership class when I have half an hour dedicated to that habit to how to learn to say no. So the first thing is to acknowledge the request,
Yep.
but to say, I will come back to you. Yeah, gain some time, maybe overnight or whatever. Next day you will come back. And then don't reject the request, but say, okay, if I do that, these are the consequences also for you and help me to cover these consequences. We can do that. And the other thing is, if you have the request and haven't answered any positive or encouraging note, you can always come back and say, I thought about it very hard. I compared it to other things I have to do, and I still have to say I cannot do it. But if you try it in uncritical situations, you develop that habit and you develop the feeling how to do it, because in the beginning you will overreact
Yeah.
and just do it every day for 2 weeks, and then you are slowly mastering the habit.
And I remember my days when I became project manager and the team got a dedicated support team. So it's small request or any marketing request, whatever I was getting from my client, I have to prioritize and get it done for my team. Now, as a new project manager, I was listening to my counterpart and, okay, yes, we can do it. We can do it. And I don't know how to say no. But one of the things my boss told me, you have to learn how to say no. Not saying no means you have to, as you correctly mentioned, you need to, okay, thank you for this request. Let me analyze it. And I will come back to you with the consequence of, yes, what we can do. Or maybe we have to drop something or put something on the side. And I will let you know. At the same time, you're throwing the ball in their court. So let them decide which one is the higher priority for them.
Exactly. And another thing is, sometimes you anticipate that your superiors or customers will come to you with a request. And then you can use the preemptive strike. You can think about it. Probably he comes with this request, and then you start the discussion about the request without him even saying it yet. But you can preemptively say, okay, if this ambiguity triggers now a kind of activity we should do in addition, I would recommend not to mention it. Though there are several tools and techniques you can learn and develop to be more firm in that you are the master of your time and you're the master of what you do.
Exactly. And in that, you cannot just do everything. So we need to prioritize.
Yeah.
One is you're not going to complete everything and you're going to stress yourself out, and that impacts your body and your hormones and everything else.
Yeah.
Okay. So my next question to you, Thomas, you've spoken often about system thinking, holistic leadership. How can everyday project and portfolio professional apply these ideas to reduce stress and increase clarity?
Yeah. I think there is a huge difference between projects and programs first,
Yeah,
but also projects, portfolios, and programs, because both projects and portfolios are depending on a more detailed view. Reductionist is good because we try to reduce complexity by breaking down things in chunks. And then we solve the chunks, and then we think, okay, if we optimize all these parts, the whole system will improve also, which is not true. But it is true in a program management thinking, because in a program management thinking, or as you say, system thinking in a holistic way, you look at the whole thing and then you identify the connectivities between these things, and you acknowledge and you embrace the complexity, because complexity also gives you some room to move. And so often in my programs, I create chaos in order to let people break out of this thinking, okay, if we detail things, then we can optimize things. And it's both in project and portfolio management that we have this kind of willingness to drill down and to go into the details and optimize in the little chunks. And then we think, okay, the whole portfolio will get a better outcome if you optimize all these parts. But it's often not the case. Maybe we should have in the portfolio these chunks of a set of projects which come together, and then we compare that with the resources we have. Also in portfolio management, we could use a holistic view, but it's often not done. It's not done because maybe I ask you the question because you're doing portfolio management with very many people. I have not seen a portfolio management approach which is really able to put up a portfolio with programs in it, which have projects in them, which are then looking at these programs at chunks in the portfolio and not looking at the individual project within that program. And I found it is a level of complexity because it includes both the holistic view in a program, look at the program as a system, but also it includes a reduction detailed view approach in the project. You can optimize the project, but you fail to optimize the program level and then the interconnections between the two.
yeah. The portfolio talks, actually, program talks about of course, the multiple projects, common objectives, all those things. But portfolio have to think holistically from the organization point of view, from the strategic organization strategy point of view. And in the program, we have interdependency. We need to align them with the strategic objective we have to achieve. So I believe the portfolio manager has to think more holistically, more complete, rather than just seeing them as small pieces. We are by doing this project, how these are going to connect or help me to achieve the value and ultimately the way they are.
So you are always setting the strategic goals as a guardrail
Yeah,
to make the selections and the optimizations. Yeah. Still, I found it hard to implement something like that because people can decide in the portfolio on projects,
yeah,
on business cases, but sometimes within a program, if you have to select a program, you select a lot of more projects, interdependencies, and potential benefits, so that maybe other projects might suffer a little bit because if you have a focus on these programs.
yeah.
So I found it a little bit more complex.
So irrespective, both of them, whether portfolio program, we have to think holistically, not just one piece or other piece. Everything fit together. How everything fit together in the roadmap of what we want to achieve over 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah. I found a good comparison out of the Chinese philosophy. So they talk about the landscape view. And if you are on a mountaintop and you look at the range of mountains around you, there are many trees and rocks and everything, but you look at the whole picture and you have
Together.
the holistic view. That's a landscape view. And certainly you can look at every tree and rock and everything and name it and put it together, but it doesn't give you the same perspective if you look at the whole thing. The Chinese call it's unfathomable. You have a lot of things, but you grasp only the impression of the whole thing, the holistic system thinking, and then you're not grasping the detailed thinking. These are coming out of a rational view, which is trying to understand nature by breaking it down. Reductionists, as I said before, and the holistic view is somehow trying to step up at the 10,000 feet level, look at the world as it is. And we are always excited if we sit at the beach and look at the sea, what is going on there. I could look at the waves without understanding the individual waves.
Yeah. I see this like a painter painting a big picture of a scenery or whatever. So when the painter go into detail of particular leaf and flower and something, but at the same time, you look back because without holistic picture, you cannot make that small thing. So
Yeah.
you need to see how this small thing is fitting together in the whole picture.
There's another thought experiment, and I'm not sure, it's from the Greek history. And so there was a ship of one of the Greek guys, and they sailed away. And after 10 years, so they had to exchange a lot of parts. In the end, after 10 years, no single piece of wood or whatever on that ship was the same as when they started the journey. So the question, philosophical question was, is it the same ship?
Mm.
If you look at the parts, no. But the holistic view of that ship is it's the same shape. If you look at the individual parts, they might change and they will change, but the whole ship as a system, as a holistic view, system thinking, is a concept that is the same, while the ship physically is not the same.
Yeah. Okay. Let me ask the next question for you. Stress often comes from unclear priorities. What practical techniques do you recommend for improving decision quality and priority alignment in fast-moving environment?
Yeah, I think first define your own priorities. And there are many tools to do that. We have this 3-box check, must do something, you should do something, you could do something. And then there is this image of have a glass and you put in the big pebbles and then the sand and then the water and you can fill everything. So there are some mental models to take care of that. There is a technique called Moscow. You can Google that. Must, should, could, should not do something to prioritize. And another technique,
Model.
yeah, saving models. Also, one other technique is if you have a day and make a plan for the day and don't expect that you will fulfill the plan because things are coming in. But start with a big task, but with a small step. Because procrastination can be mitigated by not putting the big task away. Start with this big task, work on it for 10 minutes, and then you will see if you get into the flow and then you can tackle it. And make your breaks and revisit your plan. But then every planning and what you have in front of you this day can be disturbed, especially in the VUCA world. Then be prepared to reply to triggers that are disturbing your priorities of the day. And that's also an important task. It requires that you develop your judgment. Is this really important? Is this something I should include in today's work? And then do that. And there will be emergencies.
Yeah.
You drive somewhere, you get into an accident or snow is coming up, you cannot neglect it. And there's a tendency in some people who just make an accident and continue driving without stopping. And behavior that you should avoid. Acknowledge reality. So that's the point.
Exactly. You mentioned number of prioritization tool, and whatever maybe as simple as the things to do or some list and assess whether this is the most important, why it's important, what is the consequence of doing it, not doing it. All this thing can help you to prioritize the list. Emotional, okay, let me, or maybe sometime in using 80-20 rule as well. By doing the 20% work, I can be able to get the 80% outcome. So
Yeah.
think which one has the biggest impact. And according to this analysis, they have to take time. And then I focus on this first. Let me get it done. Then number two, number three, not going to add much value. No point of doing it. I know it's a little bit important to somebody, but I can focus more on the bigger and better things.
Yeah. I like you mentioned the 80-20 rule because, that's a practical wisdom, what is really necessary to complete a task. And you're right. Pareto gives you a guidance here, as do other things like ethical behavior.
Yeah.
Don't shortcut things in an unethical way by hurting others. Don't cheat. These are all things that you should build in your behavioral and perceptual capabilities, including the behavior, and have the practical wisdom when to stop and when just to say, I don't want to be the perfectionist. The famous gold plating in projects, which is often done by developers who are excited about what they're doing. They are in a flow, so they are building things that are not required. Yeah, which is good because if they are in the flow, they are very productive, but they are overproductive and they are hurting the project scope. Yeah.
Okay. Look, Thomas, we have lots of other questions to go through this particular topic, and it's very important topic for lots of people. So we'll come back and talk about other remaining questions and other discussion points. But thank you for your contribution. I know you're traveling, you are getting ready for tomorrow's conference, but you still found time to, because it's not just come and talk, you have to think about the topic and putting those points and sharing your experience is really awesome. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you, Dharam. It was a pleasure.
And guys, look, we have limited time and we want to do a lot of things. So again, think carefully what is the most important, focus more on that. And you need to see the consequence of doing it. Look, you cannot do all the things all the time. If you're not able to do it, tell the person, okay, I will do it next time, next priority, whatever. All right, Thomas, thank you. And I will see you next time we still have to complete this topic, but at the same time, we'll come back in a few weeks. And until that time, you enjoy and take care.
You too. Thank you, Dharam.
Bye. Okay, great. Thank you, Thomas.